My friends, China has just received an instruction manual and it didn't come from a diplomat. The era of globalization as you know it has been officially buried. What you saw on the cover of this video is not a metaphor, it's what's happening right now behind the scenes in Beijing. Xi Jinping didn't receive a proposal for an agreement, he received an ultimatum. The system is shaking because the silence of the Chinese Communist Party is proof that they don't have an answer to what has just been imposed. The countdown for the collapse of the Chinese export model has already started. Look at the level of disruption. We're not talking about an ordinary trade war, but about a forced re-engineering of the global chessboard, where Beijing no longer has control over the pieces. Now look at the level of disruption. The protagonist of this crisis is not an ambassador, but the new policy of tariffs and tech sanctions that has just been delivered by hand. Pay attention to what that impact translates into. The instruction manual was delivered, which means that the United States stopped treating China as a trading partner and started treating it as a target for total containment. The manual requires the immediate end of state subsidies and the dismantling of industrial espionage. 100% tariffs were announced, which means that China's profit in the Western market evaporated, forcing the regime to choose between internal bankruptcy or total capitulation. Do you understand what this means? This isn't an ordinary trade war, it's a forced re-engineering of the global chessboard where Beijing no longer controls the pieces. China built its hegemony based on free access to the American market, and that access has just been locked from the inside. But the playbook goes beyond tariffs, it strikes at the heart of technology. Access to cutting-edge semiconductors has just been blocked, which means that China's artificial intelligence and military development are frozen in time while the West advances decades in a matter of months. Xi Jinping knows that without these chips, the Chinese dream turns into a nightmare of obsolescence. The playbook is clear. Either China gives up its military ambitions or it becomes an open-air museum of outdated technology. China has desperately tried to create its own chip industry, investing billions of dollars. But the instruction manual that arrived in Beijing reveals that ASML lithography machines, which are the heart of this industry, will never enter Chinese soil again. Without the machines, there are no chips. Without chips, there is no AI. Without AI, China loses the arms race of the 21st century. And the system collapses because Beijing realized that you can't buy innovation with brute force when the patent owner has decided the game is over. And if you think the risk is just a trade war, wait until you see what we found out about Beijing's silence on military communications frequencies. There's a second layer to this crisis that the mainstream media is terrified to mention. While diplomats smile in the photos, the instruction manual has already activated defense protocols that make any Chinese military move an immediate economic suicide. And this Trump manual details that any aggression against Taiwan will result in the instant freezing of all Chinese bank accounts abroad. The manual has activated the financial trigger, which means that Xi Jinping has to choose between invading an island or losing trillions of dollars in international reserves in less than 10 minutes. That's why Beijing's silence is deafening. They're mapping out how to survive a manual that anticipates their every move. But why didn't anyone tell you what happened to Beijing's gold reserves right after the ultimatum over Taiwan? This seems like a routine exercise, right? Wrong? And the reason is going to make your blood run cold? The manual requires the Communist Party to expose its banking weaknesses, which means the world will find out that the Chinese giant is sitting on a mountain of unpayable debts that could implode at any moment. China's real estate crisis, with giants like Evergrande and Country Garden collapsing, is the central point of the manual. The United States knows that the Chinese economy is a house of cards held up by false statistics. The instruction manual forces China to open its accounting books through the SWIFT system. If they open them, the global market will panic. If they close them, they are expelled from the financial system. It's the technical checkmate that the Western media doesn't have the courage to explain. The system trembles because the time for promises is over and the time for execution has begun. The growth model based on debt and technological copying has reached its technical limit. What we are witnessing is the transfer of productive authority back to the West. A China não está Negotiating, she is trying to survive a script she didn't write. Beijing has always operated on the assumption that the West was too dependent on its factories. The instruction manual has reversed this logic. It shows that the West has already started friendshoring, moving factories to India, Vietnam, and now to Mexico. The factories are leaving China, which means that structural unemployment in Beijing will generate social instability that the Communist Party cannot contain with repression. The dragon is wounded, and the instruction manual is the hand that's cutting off its supply of economic oxygen. Pay attention to what happens within China's borders. This secret instruction manual doesn't just affect the factories, it affects the Communist Party's social control. Youth unemployment has reached record levels, which means the promise of prosperity in exchange for obedience has been broken. And now the regime faces an internal pressure cooker that could explode at any moment. On the outside, Trump's ultimatum. On the inside, a population that is beginning to realize that the Chinese century may have lasted only 2 decades. The instruction manual details how the West will support domestic freedom movements if the regime continues to fund the war in Ukraine and Iran or threatens Taiwan. The manual is not just economic, it is a roadmap for regime change by suffocation. The system trembles because Beijing knows it can't go up against its own starving people and 100% tariffs at the same time. While the economic manual suffocates Beijing, the military manual is being written in the waters of the South China Sea. New American bases have been activated in the Philippines and Japan, which means that any attempt by Beijing to break the economic siege through a military adventure in Taiwan will be met with overwhelming force that China has no way to neutralize. The instruction manual is in fact a sentence. Either China becomes a normal country or it will be treated as a global pariah until its ultimate collapse. The presence of Filipino nav-type missiles capable of reaching the heart of Beijing is the physical proof that the manual is being enforced. The time for strategic ambiguity is over. Now the rule is clear: make a move and lose the game. And the system trembles because China has never been so militarily isolated since the Mao era. The technical doubt about the manual has been answered. It's not a roadmap for development but for dismantling Chinese hegemony. But this raises an even deeper strategic question. If Beijing is cornered economically, technologically, and militarily, what will Xi Jinping's desperate move be to maintain internal power? Will he accept defeat or will he try to take the world down with him? Won't the next step be announced at an economic forum? It will be felt on the shelves and on the radars. The instruction manual is the beginning of a process of condensed decades. The China we know is ceasing to exist, and what will come in its place is a big unknown that will define your future and your families. Are you prepared for the day when Made in China is replaced by the silence of the factories? If you want to understand what the media is hiding about this ultimatum and how real intelligence is mapping the fall of the Asian giant, you need to take the next step. There is a bunker where censorship can't get in and where we keep discussing these issues with the professionalism and depth they require. The QR code is now appearing on your screen. More than 3,000 fortified minds keep our content active and independent on our exclusive platform. The link is in the pinned comment and in the description. And for those of you who want to protect your family from indoctrination and are looking for quality entertainment, check out our movies and TV series channel. There we bring you the best of cinema, mas sem cultura woke, sem mimimi, focado em histórias que fortalecem. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and leave a like on the video. Now shield your mind, I'm Shimon Oliveira, and I'll see you in the next video.